Hey everybody, Professor Snart here. Welcome back from spring break. Hopefully you had a good one. Did some fun stuff, maybe some traveling. So just getting us back into our course then for our 12-week format. This puts us just past midterm, so we've kind of finished that up. So I'm going to look at our next couple of units just to get us a little bit out in front of things. So we are now moving into our group project that unfolds actually over units both 7 and 8, and actually a little bit of 9 as a matter of fact. So hopefully you've had a chance to connect with your group, even if you haven't necessarily started on this project. So there was an invitation back in our previous unit to at least connect with your group through our planning site here. So again, kind of jumping in, finding where your group is listed, and then at least starting out by agreeing on some means of communication. So maybe you share your email or your cell phone if you're okay doing that, or whatever the case might be. So that's basically step number 1, is just again connecting with your group and sort of like getting situated there. The assignment itself that we're working towards, and remember this is going to unfold over both this unit and the next one, so it's kind of twice as long as what we normally do, is your group is going to develop either a slide deck or a Google site, whichever you prefer to work in. Again, both good platforms for collaborative work where people don't need to be physically present, all in a room together, or on campus necessarily, or anything like that. So it's a good way to collaborate asynchronously. Is to develop one of these slide deck or site around a poet and some poems by that particular poet that you, or at least one person in the group, has some kind of interest in. So it shouldn't just be some random person that you Google, but ideally it has some, a poet that, even if you're just discovering that person, writes in a style that's interesting to you, or has some biographical thing that's kind of compelling for you, or whatever the case might be. Lots of weird characters that we can bump into here as well. So again, you can review the requirements here. Relatively straightforward as far as the assignment goes. Either 5 pages for a web, or 10 separate slides. We want some relevant biographical info, but we don't want to get too bogged down in just the trivia part of it. We want to present and analyze at least 3 works by that poet. Again, trying to reflect some of the vocabulary stuff that we've been dipping in and out of throughout our various course here. And again, sort of identifying like why this particular poet was interesting or engaging. Again, even if you're just sort of meeting this person for the first time, is there something that's for you sort of compelling about this person's work? So we really want to treat this like a group project. Everyone should have some input on, obviously, your means of communication so that no one gets left out. People should have input on what poet to cover, so you might have to work through a couple of different options. Obviously, you want to think about, is a Google slide deck or a site the best way to go? Share that with me, even if it's just blank and empty right now, but so at least that I have access to it. That should happen, sooner rather than later. And once you're done with the whole thing, again, unfolding over this unit and the next, it really should feel like one cohesive group project, not 10 slides divided semi-equally amongst the 3 people, and there's just not a lot of consistency there. And I don't necessarily actively do this, but I certainly would, if something looks just kind of weird or it feels a little too glued together, I'll use the document revision history to see sort of like who has done what at what point over, again, the couple of units that we're working on this project here. Again, the first step really is just to connect with your group in our group planning document, and then kind of take it from there. So you'll notice that the due date for this unit, or the what is due for this unit, isn't the project itself, it's just the draft of the thing. So ideally you have kind of a plan in place, maybe a few slides posted, maybe just some placeholder titles for slides so you know what's going to go there. You certainly should have chosen your person and maybe the poems that you're going to choose to cover. You want to choose obviously the slide deck or the Google site. So you're going to share that. Each group can share that on the discussion board, and then every person should visit 2 other projects and reply, providing some encouragement, some feedback, maybe some creative ideas for things to include on the slides, whatever the case might be. So not our milestone, or not our final project that we're getting to here, but just sort of a check-in, a bit of a milestone, a mile marker. So that takes us into Unit 8 then, where you have some more time to be working on this with your group and kind of refining, especially based on feedback that you're maybe getting from that Unit 7 discussion board. And then here we have, by the first due date for Unit 8, the project is complete. You're reposting the URL, so just one person from each group can do this. Include everyone's name. You'll see that just off my screen here in the group. And then there is no reply component here, so we really just have one kind of working due date, the first due date. But the reply component really happens in our next unit, and this is getting us a few weeks out now, is unit number 9. Okay, so we're going to use this tool, the Padlet tool again, so that mobile thing where you just open up the URL on your phone's web browser. Most people might be using Chrome probably. And then we're going to use this Padlet to do the mobile assignment of responding to the various groups. So obviously once they get posted, they'll be available in the discussion board. I'll repost those or re-embed them so they're kind of more easily accessible here. And you want to do this by accessing the various projects that people have done, obviously not your own, and then kind of using the Padlet here to do a reply, or sort of a version of like, your project made me think of. So it's not really just a reply like, oh, your thing was great, I really like that poet, etc., but trying to find something in the world, again, like that truly mobile assignment, that reminds you of maybe a particular poem that was covered, or an aspect of a poet, or something, creative thing that the groups have done. And so you're posting a minimum of 3 separate pictures, right? 3 different projects that you're responding to. And again, it's not just a typical reply, but it is kind of like extending the thinking of that particular project. And we're doing this in a really mobile way. So not sitting at the computer, not just Googling things, but really trying to weave it into what we're on the lookout for as part of our normal everyday lives. So if we look at our due dates, then we really have 3 unfolding units that are all related to one another. Kind of the initial connecting with your group, planning, starting to draft the project, some more work time plus finishing up, obviously, the project, and then we have the reply component, the your project made me think of component, into unit number 9 here. So again, taking us a little bit further into April. So I'm going to leave it there for now. I will obviously check back in as we get a little bit closer, to these due dates coming up, and also, looking forward to some of our final units here. Just one little quick note having to do sort of with that is, I think one of the most difficult, if not the most difficult, part of the whole term, fall and spring combined, is this post-spring break time period. You probably have things that are really starting to ramp up in other courses, moving to final projects or exams or that kind of a thing. We feel like sort of close to the end of the term, but really we still have a number of weeks to go. We start to begin to think about summer, whether it's sort of like leisure, travel plans, family planning, but also work plans, potentially courses that you might be doing, other kinds of, business or educational travel that you might be undertaking. So our attention is really pulled in a lot of different directions. It is even worse, to be honest, if the weather at spring break is really nice, because then we start thinking about all that stuff too. If you were in the Chicago area, you didn't definitely have to worry about that problem. But anyway, I think it takes an intentional, even greater intentional focus on our course, the units, the work that we're doing, staying plugged in, not just for this course, but any others that you're doing. This post-spring break time, we feel so close to the end, but still kind of a lot going on, especially if you happen to be graduating, right, as part of a commencement this coming spring. Just again, lots of competing demands on your attention. So really have to make that effort to stay focused, plugged in, and I think even more so maybe because we have this group thing going on, you don't want to be the person who is inadvertently or intentionally kind of weighing that group down by not really doing your part. So again, do your best to stay connected here, and as always, you can be in touch with me if you have any questions or concerns.